Have you actually read this espionage? This is like from, this is 1828 dictionary's definition of espionage, right? The practice or employment of spies. The practice of watching the words and conduct of others and attempting to make discoveries as spies or secret emissaries. The practice of watching others without being suspected and giving intelligence of discoveries made. So that's basically finding out what everyone's up to. So, Larry Ellison, his concept of oracle is espionageous. The idea of it, the intention to want to do it, the concept is espionage. But not against one country, against the whole fucking planet. Right? And this is what Sergey Brin's doing. But, like, this is the thing, right? They're trying to make you consent to may accept it, right? So, you give permission or whatever. But no one we've all got copyright over our letters and emails and things like that, as well as artwork, right? And they're not having it for fair use. Fair use is for personal use, right? They're actually making money out of it, profit and business, and using it for an alternative reason, which is espionage, which is against the Human Rights Act Article 8. And there's no urgent social pressing need for it. They're doing it for their own intelligence. Ellison has got history in CIA intelligence. This is the industrial military complex, right? But they've already done it. They've already got all our information and they've already got our stuff. Anyway, all this bollocks about, Sergey Brin, he's put a setting on the emails, like, pull the other one, right? The anonymous can pretty much read anything they want if they really want to, right? These people, they've already looked at what they want to look at and they already know what they want to know exactly at this time about people, right? Which is why the newspapers fucking wind people up with a front cover thing, and any person in England they can give the middle finger to, say, oh, like, I know what you fucking did last summer or whatever, right? The whole thing is illegal. It can't be lawful. Because this is the thing, right? Google's a monopoly, right? It was meant to be a search engine, like the Yellow Pages, right? It was meant to list all websites. But it was only meant to find them, and then so you can search for what you're looking for, right? But they weren't satisfied with that, and they made a hell of a lot of money out of advertisements because they got literally the business of the whole country, right? Or the whole world. And then they ventured out into all these other things like, protein synthesis, alphabet and all the things. Even the names of them, alphabet, right? It's like, bet on the alpha male, alphabet. And then you've got like, this Aladdin system, rub the genie and out comes a lamp. Now you've got the oracle. They're obsessed with the occult. They name everything like the freaking occult, like Hitler did, right? And then it's like, Zuckerberg, has got a little social media, the BBC are like, hey, why don't you, sign up for digital media? When, oh, yeah, by the way, that's what, Tony Blair wants. Then they got this Human Rights Act, and they're breaking every single right in the Human Rights Act. And mysteriously, all these foreign immigrants are managing to get these lawyers, God knows where from. But why haven't they used the right to privacy, Why haven't they used it, in the court against this, right? It says in the Blackstone's guide that there has to be an urgent pressing social need and there can't be an ulterior motive. Well, this is a business need. It's for profit. It's a profit for business need, and it hasn't got an ulterior motive. It is exactly what it says that you're not allowed to do in the Act is exactly what they're doing. The specific thing. The exact thing that the Act says that you're not allowed to use it for is what they're using it for. So I don't really know what the Good Law Project and Joyland Moore are messing around with, uploading these videos. Oh, we like better press these buttons and deactivate like the thing, right? Why aren't you in court, like, taking them on? There's a copyright aspect to it, and then there was quite a few laws to do with actually reading mail and messages in the Telegraph Acts, right, and even items or attachments to them, right? But they repealed that in the year 2000, which was 1998, 1999, 2000, when they were like, You see, our Royal Mail was owned by the country and a part of the government, right? Which is why you don't have to pay for petitions being posted. And then they privatised it. So basically, they're buying everything. They're buying all the whole government up, privatising it, and then making it globally owned and operated, and then getting all our information to know what everyone's doing. Like, what's the point in national security? I really don't know what Sir Ken McCallum is playing at, right? There isn't a national security when someone is in the process of implementing a long-term strategy of not having countries and not having nations and identities, right? Look, I don't really know what Jonathan M. following Extinction Rebellion and all these people are going, oh, far right, far right, far right. Okay, with all these mad accusations against all these political parties. Look, right, the whole existence and point in Scotland is that they opposed an invasion, right? And if they hadn't have done, it wouldn't be Scotland, right? So it stands for and represents opposition to invasion. That's the point in it. Because if they didn't, then it wouldn't be called Scotland. And the same for Wales, right? The whole ideology, the embodiment of it, the principle of it, the meaning of it, the purpose of it is, it exists because we opposed invasions. And we didn't want to lose, like, a language, a culture, or an identity, right? So the whole point in Scotland and Wales is against invasions, right? Now, the Welsh people and the Scottish people said, we want our own governments for the reason the Welsh and Scottish believe that they were having their own governments is because they're not England. They're separate. They exist separately because they fought off invasions, right? And they're independent, right? So for that reason was a selling point for having a Welsh Senedd, because we're Wales, we never got invaded. Well, we never lost our language. We never lost our identity. We opposed invasion, so we're going to have our own separate government to symbolise that, because we don't want to be under the English government, right? And supposedly the same for Scotland, which is why Nicola Sturgeon supposedly doesn't want Scotland to be part of England. But the actual truth is this: the real idea behind the Scottish and Welsh government is not that at all. It's the complete opposite. It's, hey, we'll get a load of woke Labour Party people and liberal Davy Wavies, right, who are like, all for anal sex and, gender bending and assisted suicide and, loads of weird, really, neoliberal weird shit, right? And they're like, okay, we don't want there to be Scotland and Wales. We think that the whole world should be one. There shouldn't be an identity. We should all speak the same language. There shouldn't be a nationality. We should welcome as many different foreign people over here and mix them up as possible. And then the whole point in Wales is pointless, right? There's no point in Wales. There's no point in Scotland. Right, which means that you want to have a united kingdom of all one country, and not only that, the whole world. So, and then to do that, you need to have governments that welcome as many foreign people into the government as possible. Loads of policies that basically stop the public from opposing what's going on, like rejecting e-petitions, like the Scottish and Welsh clerks are doing, rejecting all the petitions, when those are the things that you can ask for, right? So you can't stop anything that these governments are putting through when they're implementing all this, like, weird stuff, right? And then, you're not allowed to even speak against it, like in your own house, etc., right? So what is actually going on with the Senedd and Scotland is that they're actually they're infiltrating and they're doing a program, that they're doing a grooming and priming program to actually institutionalize, or not institutionalize, to de-Welsh the Welsh people effectively, right? The Senedd's there to make Welsh people not Welsh, right? And not want to be Welsh. But But what's the point of having the Senate? If you want to get rid of opposition to foreign countries and invasion, and you want to welcome immigration, and you want to, have the whole planet speaking English, and, you want one nation and one government mechanism of implementation, you need to get rid of the Welsh ideology and Welsh people, which is actually what the Senate are doing, and that is the total opposite point of having a Welsh government, because they want to remain Wales and protect whatever Wales meant. But they don't actually want it to mean that. So this Eleanor Morgan and Nicola Sturgeon or wherever's in charge of the Scottish government now, whoever it is, that is it not Spence guy or some, I forgot his name anyway. I did remember. It's a guy at the moment. So Nicola Sturgeon, right? She wants to be separate from England and have independence. But why? For what point? Because they don't agree with the laws of England, but they're all doing this woke takeover thing where they want to get rid of the idea of being separate. Because the idea of Scotland being separate as a country with laws, the whole point of it is that because it didn't want to be part of England. Why? Because England, all became, taken over from foreign invasion. So Sturgeon could not be in the most hypocritical position ever. Because what they're actually doing is, all of the ideas and principles, right, of being Scottish are what merit having a Scottish government. All of the principles of actually having Scotland as separate, right, the whole point in having Scotland as separate, because they don't want to be under the laws of England, right, that's the whole point in it. But what they're actually doing is they say, we want... but they're doing the opposite. They're doing the absolute, complete, total and utter opposite, which is they're saying that, all the ideology of Scotland being separate, which is to have separate laws and clearly separate ideas if it's separate legal, right? We want to get rid of all that. And all the Scottish thing, people saying people they want and saying they were now in Scotland, and possibly opposing things like, if you want to be separate from England, you're opposing English people because, and they're not even, they're even closer people than ethnic people. So, the Welsh Senedd and the Scottish Parliament are a complete and utter bollock. It's just bollocks. It's pure bollocks, right? The Senedd, you're not even supposed to invent new privileges, right? Because of the act that says you can't invent new privileges. And obviously it's a privilege for the members of the House of Lords and Commons to not have to do all the Welsh business, right? That's a new privilege, right? Them not having to bother doing it all. It's just ridiculous. They make the Welsh are putting laws through. So absolute nuts. And this is actually what Ellison's doing. This is what Tony Blair's doing as well. And they're doing how can you do this? Well, they can't do it legally because then actually, but they're trying to make out that they're doing it legally, so it's not espionage or because we got consent to make accept. But no, I don't want them to look at my stuff. Well, it's like, but so what it is, we'll get our businesses as monopolies. We'll make sure that everyone's on the same system and everyone's consenting and agreeing to it. And then if everyone's like on Facebook and everyone's on Google and everyone's on YouTube and they all consent, submit and agree to it, and they all have the digital ID card, then it's not espionage because they agreed to it. Yeah, but you got to agree to it by not having loads of different online platforms that have all got completely different ideologies and policies and it's competitive. You did it so you're having one brand that takes over the whole planet, and you got the whole country on it, like 60 million people on Facebook, and you manage to get them all to consent and accept to give up the rights of the country, like copyright laws, right to privacy is protected supposedly in the Human Rights Act 1998, right? It couldn't be more criminal. This, right, I've just made a video, and it might sound very harsh, right, because I was banging on about death penalty in America, right, but the espionage is a death penalty offence in America, and I think it falls under treason in England, right, particularly if you're giving the information to foreign countries. If Tony Blair is working with Larry Ellison in order to get the information of the people through mechanisms of implementation, and he's working with foreign countries, even China, some of them are enemies of the state, but not all of them. But what happens if we went to a war with America? We could go to war with America at any time and fall out with them, right? The way that Trump's acting with South America, right? We could have a disagreement about something, and Trump could say, right, well, fuck you then, and then immediately Mark Zuckerberg has got intel on every single, not only the army, but every single person. That's espionage, right? What they are doing is illegal, and this is why Tony Blair got rid of the death penalty in England for treason, right? Tony Blair is committing espionage in collaboration with Larry Ellison, right? That's what he's doing. In order to try to do this Oracle thing, of which the idea and concept of it is criminal. The desire to want to do that idea while countries exist and national security exists and treason laws exist, the concept of it is treason. It's espionage. And Tony Blair's actually admitted all this. He's given evidence. His mechanisms of implementation. This is what he's implementing towards the Oracle thing, right? And that means that unless you don't have a country, which we've got in the Act of Settlement, right? And this is the real reason why they're trying to get rid of the monarchy, because they don't really want to get rid of the monarchy, but they're getting rid of it. So then, because that's one reason, if they've got the monarchy, then, you can say, oh, well, we've got a country to defend and, it's treason or espionage. If you abolish them all, this is what they got that Graham Smith doing, try to go and abolish the monarchy, but they want to, they're like, okay, we're going to have to take over planet Earth, but it's going to be like treason if we do it. So, unless we don't have, the monarchy anymore, and then it's not treason. So, they've actually, this is what Tony Blair's plan is, right? When the only thing I've ever complained about is that people aren't following the law or obeying it, I got called out supposedly for not obeying the law, and I got into trouble with, going out driving, which is doing my job, even though there's plenty of clauses in the law that say that, like you got scheduled to keep, it's not an offence, right? It's a defence, right? These people are doing very serious high crime. Like, Sergey Brin's even, he's met a bit of contact with Russia. They're nosy Parkers, they're using Trojans, they spy on people, right? And they need to keep their nose out of other people's business, If it's CIA, fair enough, but, then you've got that, Scott, whatever you call him, just pop over to Russia to inspect their weapons. Oh, did they let you in to look at them? It's amazing, right? Who could believe that, It's like, you can't make this stuff up. And as George Galloway says, right, the Russians let the Americans in to look at their weapons just to check them to see if they're all in good order or not, right? That's an enemy. This is ridiculous. Something needs to be done about these people. They're actually breaking laws. What they're doing is they've got a monopoly. Google is a monopoly. Google's a monopoly, and Zuckerberg's got like 3 out of the main social media companies, and there aren't that many others. They've killed off any chance of any other search engine of competing with Google, and he even did it with a notepad as well. And even the email company, Google, and the government are all kind of signed up to it and in on it. They're even using like these social media as a contact pages. And the government, Parliament have even broken the law for MP contact and election laws and plenty of other stuff. I don't really think that they actually understand how serious it is with the election laws that they've broken. And then we've been conned from opposing private developments through private bills, because then we'd have been able to block a lot of these extra buildings, developments and things, and, aeroplane engine factories ruining the town, and stupid little supermarkets and all these housing estates everywhere where we don't want them. We'd have easily been able to stop it with private bills, but they lied to everyone, all the lawyers, and said, you can just do a judicial review. Fleeced us, right? When, private bills is a quarter of the price, and then they don't even have any parliamentary agents working in effect who could do it. I don't think that they could legally do it because if they've only got 7 parliamentary agents acting in England, or few of them, under a dozen or so, then if they're all being used by local council authorities or businesses and you want to oppose them, they'll say, no, we've got conflict of interest, right? Because there won't be one single company. If local community groups, there's 7 of them, there's not going to be one of them that hasn't got some conflict of interest company in there somewhere, right? So we're not even able to pursue private bills lawfully now because they've set it up so there'll be conflict of interest. Well, that's what's with the council, because you're opposing the council. They don't want you to oppose them. They don't even want you to know that you can go to Parliament. So that's a conflict of interest to lie to you that the fucking process doesn't exist, right? It couldn't actually be worse at the moment. It couldn't be worse. So this is Larry Ellison is an espionage agent, right? This is his business. Larry Ellison's business is espionage, right? Tony Blair is in the business of espionage. He started off the Freedom of Information, then they tried to do ProQuest so you can't even get to any information that you really need to prove that they're doing stuff wrong, like in the law of the government, only universities, right? If there's any information worth having, it's on that ProQuest thing, right? When